Live right now. Why don't you give us just an introduction, then you guys can jump in your discussion. And then we'll do some podcasts in a few moments. So just go ahead and let's do live stream for like 10, 15 minutes.
I'll try it. Are we doing the normal shoot too?
Yeah, we'll do the normal sheet later. I'm just saying let's do the live stream because that's what we're set up to be on live right now. Here you go. Yeah.
Hey, Stand Tall with Dave Brown. I'm here with my guest Paul Moore. Paul, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
We're here today to talk about a little bit of political stuff going on. There's obviously a lot of races coming up. Paul, tell us what you're running for.
Well, I'm running for Clackamas County Sheriff.
Okay. And what, that sounds kind of like Tombstone or old school, like we still have sheriffs out there, do we?
Well, we should. The sheriff is defined by law in Oregon as chief executive officer and conservator of the peace. And sheriffs need to be about that business. In recent months and even years, we've experienced unprecedented things that are happening. And unless I miss my guess, Dave, we're going to see things that are much greater coming down the pike, or the things we've experienced are going to pale in comparison. So we need a sheriff that's kind of like that, the old sheriff that's up to the task and going to take care of business. I say all the time, business as usual is just not going to get the job done anymore.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of kidding, on the whole sheriff thing. It's like, I don't think a lot of us understand, the hierarchy of, the police, work that's done for us. We have state, we have sheriffs, we have, our local, we have county. Why is the sheriff's department and the sheriff so important, though?
Well, people kind of pigeonhole the sheriff as law enforcement or a cop, police work, and that's a part of what the sheriff does. But a sheriff wears many hats, and they can do. I believe a sheriff is the most important person you can elect because, first of all, it's an elected position, so the people choose their sheriff, which is very important.
Right.
The other component is the sheriff is like the gatekeeper, or should be the gatekeeper in the county, and can absolutely stand up for the citizens. And it's interesting that our state constitution in Oregon requires that a sheriff swear an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the state of Oregon. And so it's incumbent upon a sheriff to stand up for the rights of the citizens. In other words, stand up for our liberty. And when a sheriff does that and they understand that concept, they're not just law enforcement officers. They don't just run a law enforcement agency, but they have a dual purpose of standing up for the citizens' rights. In effect, what they do is they build a foundation of public safety. And public safety is the foundation upon which all county structure that's worth anything is built. And we all know what happens, Dave, when you build a great house on a crappy foundation.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about, the power of a sheriff compared to everybody else. And in today's world now, with after COVID, after George Floyd's passing, we entered into this crazy time in our country of cancel culture and, condemning culture and people wanting to just attack. And this has made it super difficult for police in general. We've saw it, daily, nightly in Portland. How can the sheriff, answer some of those questions?
Well, it's those are some hard questions to answer. And a lot of these things, the stuff that we saw in Portland, the over 100 consecutive nights of rioting and those issues, there's so many factors that play into that. But I think one of the major factors, Dave, is accountability. I think we've removed accountability from so many things in government, in everything. And without accountability, it's like having a good compass, but no true north.
Right.
Where do you point your compass and how do you get where you need to be? We have to instill accountability. I think that's the main component. And sheriffs are a big part of that. But the difficulty there is over many years, sheriffs have abdicated their authority to the state. States gladly taken it away. But if the sheriff is designed by the nature of being sheriff, by law defined as chief executive officer, swearing an oath to support and defend the Constitution, which is required by our state constitution, the sheriff is set up to be the gatekeeper, to stand against a tyrannical government and stand up for the people. Well, that's awful hard to do when it's the government that gives you your certification and your ability to be a sheriff, when it's the government that determines if you can even be on the ballot before the voters even have a say. So the sheriff has to take back their authority, and they have to do their job and stand up for the people. And as far as the police officers go, having a culture of service, having the police officers understand that they work for the citizens and they stand up for them. But every law enforcement officer that works the beat out there, boots on the ground, they also swear an oath to support and defend the Constitution. And it's part of the job to run into people that have differing opinions and stuff. But and police officers should be held to a higher standard. But you have to stand up for the citizens, and you have to be invested in service. I think it's that service component that wins the people over, where they see police officers in a positive light, and they should, and they see that when the police start to serve, and that's their focus.
Paul, can you hand me that thing right there?
Oh, you bet.
As we're talking about this Constitution thing, you guys, it's one of those things where, when I got to the school board, I had to, swear an oath to the Constitution, and then the Constitution of the State of Oregon, and then the policies of Newburgh School District. And I think now, at least what I've seen is the lip service that, it's kind of a ceremonial thing, but it's not really happening. Why do you think that so many people they say it, but they kind of disregard the nuts and bolts of this thing?
Well, I think the answer is apparent, and I think it's quite simple, is we don't teach kids the Constitution anymore. And I was in law enforcement full-time for 13 years with 2 different agencies and had multiple certifications. And there's one thing, I learned a lot about sensitivity training. I learned a lot about different topics, but there's one thing I never learned anything about, and that was the Constitution.
Right.
We don't teach it in our schools. People aren't exposed to it. And what it's become is ceremonial window dressing. You put your hand on a Bible, you swear an oath to the Constitution, and that's it. But it has to start meaning something, because it was instilled in what sheriffs are required to do and what other people are required to do for a reason, because that is the supreme law of the land. It's the foundation upon which everything else is built.
Yeah, and I think your house foundation, thing, if you don't have a good foundation, you're in big trouble.
Yes.
I think just because talking to you right now, one of the things I want to do is I want to tell everybody, you pick these up when you go to certain events. People will pay a couple dollars and provide these for free at a lot of events. I think you've had them at your events. But I would say we're going to add this to the Stand Tall with Dave Brown website. And so if you don't have an opportunity to go get one of these, you could obviously, go on Google and get the Constitution. And it doesn't take long to read. It really doesn't.
Right.
But one of the things, when you look at the Constitution, what the framers were trying to do was protect us from ourselves. They were trying to protect us from obviously what they had lived, or seen in Britain. And they were trying to protect us, though, from making poor decisions, selfish decisions. And so let me ask you this one. This will be a fun one for you. I did security at Newburgh High School for like 10 years, after classroom stuff. So, I'm a coach, and I got to work with the local police, but it was very low. I would just work with them as soon as anything happened. I'm deferring to them immediately because they were the professionals. But I could run for Clackamas County Sheriff. Why would you be better than me?
Well, it's experience, it's knowledge, it's understanding. I'm not a career law enforcement person. I didn't retire from law enforcement, and I left and I got into the corporate world. I was a general manager and a mid-level manager for a Fortune 200 company. And because of my military training, I'm a United States Marine. I served 6 years on active duty as a U.S. diplomat assigned to the Department of State. I worked at embassies and consulates overseas, and my primary responsibility was protecting our nation's secrets for classified material. But we had a secondary responsibility in protecting the lives and families of dignitaries and diplomats. So I received some of the best security training in the world. And that only comes from one place. And I was very, very blessed to be assigned to the Marine Security Guard Battalion and receive that training. But there's a few things that I learned that I contrasted with law enforcement, or my law enforcement experience. Law enforcement is absolutely reactive. In other words, they enforce the law once the law has been broken. Right. Where security, on the other hand, fixes the problem before there is a problem. Right. And that's a basic reason that I would say why I'd have an advantage over you, possibly, or my opponents, because they don't have that experience. They have the law enforcement side, but they're lacking the proactive security side, which I think we need with things that we're going to face down the pike.
Yeah, I've met one of your opponents, and I've talked to other people about the person that's in the job now. And, for me, what I look for in people is character. It's my first thing I look for. And I've always used that, when people use fear, control, manipulation in their management style, they're masking a deficiency in their management style. And with you, Maura, it's like I see the character and the desire to really serve, and that's rare. It doesn't happen all the time. I am a coach. I've coached forever. Tennis, basketball, football, and there's some great coaches out there. I went to the Dayton Douglas game last night in Dayton, Oregon. Oh, it was just a kick, and both coaches did a good job, and I liked them both. The Dayton coach, Ron Hopp's, one of the top 5 coaches in the state of Oregon, just hands down. And that experience just, comes through. But he also cares. I know him personally, like I know you, and it's just that character of, he was an outstanding player. He has a good coaching staff, but he cares deeply and he has good experience in it. And that's what I see in you, Paul. I mean, I see somebody that truly wants to serve the people of Clackamas County. And what would you say to the average person in Clackamas County who is, they're pretty uninformed on, between you and your opponents?
Well, I would say that it's critical to understand the importance of having a sheriff, and a sheriff can stand up for you and should. And question I would ask somebody like that is, what do you think about your current sheriff? And across the board, 100% of the time, I'm going to get this answer. I don't know who the sheriff is. Who's the sheriff? You should know your sheriff. Right. And you should be able to call them. They should be a role model in the community and all these things, because the people should be able to rely on the sheriff.
Well, even with that, can I ask you, I mean, I've talked about this, but I just dawned on me. It's like the people of Clackamas County deserve somebody who's going to be there for them and their family. And I think that is definitely something you've told me. So the people of Clackamas County have to they have to know that they're going to have somebody in their corner.
Yeah. Well, they do. And how do they gain that knowledge? You can say it, you can speak it, you can say I'm tough on crime and I'm this and I'm that and the other thing. But demonstrated behavior is what wins the day. It's what they understand. And that's what we have to do. And my experience permeates that. Demonstrated service, whether it's protecting somebody's life that's visiting Portland and feels that they're not safe, or whether it's serving in any capacity. And that's why there has to be a focus on service, because I believe if I serve with all my heart and I do the best job that I can, people are going to see that. Yeah. And it's not going to take them long to say, well, I know my sheriff. My sheriff is Paul Moore, and he's got my back because he did X, Y, Z. I want to tell you a brief story, Dave. I met a sheriff in Eastern Oregon. I sat down and had coffee with the guy. It was a small county, and it was just a blast talking to this guy. He was an older gentleman, and I even count him as a mentor. And so when I first met him, I said, well, can I get one of your business cards? And he made the most profound statement, and I thought about it a lot. He said, I don't have business cards because everybody knows who I am. And I said, what a model. Yeah. And that's because of his service and his desire to serve and his community involvement and things. And no doubt everybody did know who he was. So even in a county as large as Clackamas County, if I can model that kind of behavior and I can serve at that level, then people will trust me, and I will have their back, and they'll be confident in me as sheriff.
Yeah, I would say the people of Clackamas County, they need to, it's in every county. I live in Yamhill County. It's in every county. And it's in every race, every political race out there, that people need to get people in office that are going to, help them, take care of them, be there for them, make good decisions for them. Honestly, when I go into Clackamas County, I feel less safe than I do in Yamhill County. Now I feel more safe in Clackamas County than I do if I go into Multnomah County. But I think, now it's baffling to me, but I do know the main reason that like in Portland, how they just abandon the laws and the police officers are just left hanging. What would you do with the sheriffs that I've met a few? My wife was in a tough accident in Wilsonville, met some good guys and gals over there. And what would you do to help take care of those sheriffs that are frustrated with the lack of support from the government as far as abiding by the law?
Well, we have problems when our legislature passes laws. 114, 110, House Bill 2005. I could get into all of these things that basically fly in the face of public safety and the Constitution. And yet we put officers on the street that are supposed to keep the peace, and they don't have the tools to do it. So I think advocating against those things is one. The other things is is training and all the things you can do, providing the right equipment. You got to take care of your officers so they can do their jobs, and then just creating a culture of camaraderie and helping these people feel that they're appreciated and they're valuable. And I don't think that's happening across the board because of the leadership in our law enforcement agencies. Because we have deputies in Clackamas County that have left and taken less jobs with less pay to go someplace else. Well, that can't happen. That's because they don't feel appreciated. And I think that most people would agree that it's not always about the money. It's about, are you doing a job you love, that you feel appreciated and you feel supported? Law enforcement people need our support. They work horrendous hours. They're away from home. They face excruciating circumstances, and a lot of it's emotional. And so there's a balance between family and work. And we got to help maintain that balance. The sheriff should be about doing that, because indirectly that is standing tall for the citizens in the county when you take care of your officers.
Yeah, I was speaking with several Portland police officers, and the frustration level they have over their mayor and the district attorney just not supporting the law, which puts the police officers in a tremendous bind. I mean, they're just caught in the middle. And when I would work with the Newburgh PD, and we had we're talking high school, so we're not at a high level, crime, but when we had something happening, they would come in and they immediately took charge, and they were in charge of the situation. Not me, not the principal, not the vice principal. They were in charge. And they did a great job every time. They were always, sometimes they had to be, direct and blunt, but they were always very professional. They were always well-trained. We have an excellent police department in Newburgh, Oregon. And it was something that they felt like they had the backup of the chief, and they had the backup of the mayor and the city council. So I would just say to the people of Clackamas County, if you're looking for somebody who, my number one thing I would be picking is somebody get the job done and have high character. And I think Paul has both those. And you're running against somebody who's pretty good, and then there's an incumbent in there that, people are gonna have to make a choice on. But you should know what they're doing. You should know how happy, people really are. But I think sometimes change is really, really necessary. And I think this is one of those times where there needs to be a change at the top. And, we just wish you all the best.
Well, thank you, Dave. It's an honor being here, and stand tall with Dave Brown.
There you go.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You bet.
Good. All right, I'll turn off the live stream. You guys saw it was going, so that was good. That was good. I'm sorry, I got the lights blasting in my face.
Now, can we turn that into a podcast, or we can come back and
we could
roll into a podcast?
turn that into a podcast as soon as I would like to actually record some actual settings. Lucy.
Mike, come on.